Hey there, this is Kris McDonald from T3 Tech Partners, and you are watching Shift Left, Reaching Operational Maturity Using AI. We're going to start off by talking a little bit of background. Typically, every tech organization has a tier, right? You have most of your employees are at the lower level of the experience range, but some of us have different criterias for these tiers. And the following are the most common definitions that can help us with this presentation. So we're going to start with tier one. Usually that's the initial triage and troubleshooting. They're the folks that do routine, well documented tasks all the time. Your tier two is typically the escalation point for on premise or advanced, but well documented stuff. Tier three comes into play as an escalation point when something is undocumented, unknown. It's a task that requires some systems expertise or really advanced troubleshooting. And then, of course, there's the owner, CIO, CTO, right? When it comes to this work, the bulk, maybe 70% or so, is performed at tier one. About 20% is performed at tier two, and hopefully about 10% is at tier three. And this is kind of utopic ideals, right? How much we would want to, in a perfectly mature organization, structure things. When it comes to shifting left, this concept is talking about taking those tasks and responsibilities and assigning them to your lowest cost, highest availability tier in your organization. And you can do that by improved standards, processes, or even technology. Let's talk about this new concept that we're talking about here today is having a tier zero. And with this, AI can be your tier zero, the lowest cost, highest availability employee. They are cheap. They're very available, and for the most part, obedient. There is some cons. They really behave like a maliciously compliant, incompetent employee if you don't give them the instructions, guide rails, and communicate with them in the way that they need to process the information. So, without further ado, let's talk about the anatomy of a great prompt. There are several things that come into play when you're building a prompt, and it really depends on the use case of the prompt. So, combinations of these, you wouldn't need to, for example, specify data fields when you're, sending an email. You wouldn't need to talk about the audience if you're creating a code like PowerShell, right? So the anatomy does fluctuate based on the use case. So let's look at a few use cases that are probably more frequent in the IT MSP world. First one, code generation. Of course, we're all doing it, right? It's PowerShell scripts. Help me with them, especially in Copilot. But you see how it's compiled of different areas. You wanted the task. What does this script or function need to do? What language is it going to be written in? What is the context? Like, where is this going to be happening? Is it triggered by a webhook? Then you're going to need to say input output. What do you want to put into and what do you want to have it output? Your guardrails, which is any performance compatibility constraints. Don't assume XYZ. Always, if it doesn't pass this, then do this kind of thing. Style and format, whether you want to have comments in it, that can be helpful. Usually, I would say Copilot's really, really good at adding comments into the code, even if you don't specifically ask for them. And then I love to put in the API reference documents. The reason being is that when you give Copilot or any other AI the API or PowerShell module documentation, it's going to pull from there first before it reaches out to, God forbid, a Reddit rabbit hole. Because what you find with the results in AI, when you get a bad result or code that doesn't work properly, it probably came from a human source, probably in a Reddit thread. I do feed it references, which is the module or API documentation. So let's talk integrations and automation. So with integrations and automation, we're looking for things like what process are you trying to automate? You got to give it a goal. What's involved? Is it Zapier? Is it Power Automate? What are the systems that you're automating? a trigger, what's going to kick off the workflow, and then step-by-step actions of what should happen. If you guys have ever seen the videos that go through the instructions to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and how very exact they're trying to be in order to keep mistakes from happening, that's kind of the level that you need to talk to your AI in order to get good results. Now, this is where data fields come into play. Do you have to pass variables? Do you have some fields that need to be taken into consideration? Then there's limitations, security constraints, any type of guardrails that might need to be in place. One of the things, if this value is null, don't continue on, kind of thing. Now, you might be asking, just like I was, especially with Copilot, how can you use automation? Copilot, in and of itself, doesn't seem to talk between the systems that I expected it to. You do when you're working with Copilot, you can use the OpenAI REST API, openai.azure.com. They have the ability to create deployments through there. And I'm going to be experimenting with that. And I will touch back with you. But in my research, this is where we need to be going if you want to trigger it from Microsoft Forms, Power BI, Excel, anywhere, your flows, all of these things, you would have to use the OpenAI REST API, which I do not believe your data is private on there. This is an open source, which means that I don't think anything you feed it is going to stay private. But let's move on. What about marketing copy? We're probably lots of you are throwing tasks into either ChatGPT or Copilot to try and write out some marketing copy. Pretty good, at least the copy side of things. So starting out, this is where audience comes into play, right? You need to talk about who it's for and what they care about. What kind of tone are you trying to be? Are you edgy? Are you formal? What your goal is? Are you trying to get them to click a link, book a call, or are you just trying to do general information being passed on to others? So the offer, what is in it for them? That's really important. It's as important as the audience, right? You need to know who you're talking to and what they care about, and then what's in it for them. The format, whether it's like a one-liner, a paragraph, a subject line, and I will say I often ask it to revise for concise or clarity. Every time that something is generated, I find that AI will give me a much more lengthy format than what I'm looking for. So I always go back a second time for shorten this, make it more concise, kind of thing. And then references. Do you have anything that was generated for your company already that has tone and messaging? Do you have a brand guide for font guidelines, etc.? So these are the kind of things that make up good marketing copy prompts. Then there's image generation. We all love this. We need to talk about what should appear in the image. What style do you want it? Whether it's watercolor, realistic, vintage, black and white, the mood or the tone. There's a lot of ways to go for, serene, chaotic, futuristic, dark. Any of these things can kind of set the tone. Sometimes you may want to specify the camera angle, wide lens, close up. Is it an aerial view? You know, but a lot of times you're just looking for a two-dimensional image. So the next thing is composition, background, lighting, those types of things. So is what's in the background? Is there trees? Is there an office space? In the office space, is there a red stapler on the table? Those kinds of very small, minute extras will make the content better. And then if you have any references, like it, in the style of a 90s cartoon, or feed it the style of some other images that you want to match. Like if I was trying to generate more of these robots that I used for the presentation, I would give them all the robots and say, I want it in this style. All right. So email and chat communication. So this one is very much like the marketing copy. You're going to have an audience. You need to know who it's for and what matters to them. Tone, context. When would this communication occur? Is this the first time you've talked to this person, or did you meet them at a conference and you want to continue the conversation? What is the goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you want them to book a call? Do you want them to just be informed? Composition, your communications are different, whether it's an email or if it's chat. Then there's references. Are you like, example communications, templates if you have them, that show your writing style and make it so that it feels like you're communicating with a human. I once did have I had an email exchange with somebody that I knew quite well who was trying out AI on their email. And I called him afterwards and I asked, "Did you just have a brain aneurysm? Because that did not sound like you." Over time, he did feed it more examples and it did start to sound much more like him. But in the very beginning, without these references, you could very much notice the difference between how this communication felt to the receiving party. All right. So this one I use a lot when it comes to import export of data, whether I got it from my RMM and I need to import it into another system. This is where data formatting comes into play. You want to create a CSV file that has specific headers and the information is ported over into certain areas. You can do this. I did it with a IT glue export where all the information was in it, but I needed to format it a different way to import it into a new system. And in this case, I fed it the PDF and I gave it some context. What are we trying to do? We're trying to migrate it from this system to this other system. It's the goal is to actually import your format. It's going to need to be a CSV file with certain headers and certain fields. So that's where the data fields come into play. I had a download template, I think, that I fed it as well. And then also in the guardrails, I would say, well, if you have data that cannot go in any of the given fields, add it to the info or additional information field, and it would compile that. So everything that was in this IT glue export was able to be imported to the new system. Even if the field didn't exist for it, I was able to put it into the other information field, which is great. So this one I use all the time. So now, with all these tasks, you can actually shift some of your day to day responsibilities from one tier to the next using AI, which allows you to focus on growing your business, get more done, and make more money.